So, a common narrative amongst the MMA media lately has been that all these cards from UFC 239 until UFC 241 are kind of filler cards that are really top heavy and maybe only have a couple of fights on each card that anybody really cares about. And I would kind of agree with that. And this upcoming weekend's card in UFC Uruguay is no different. Although I would argue that the fight coming up here in the co-main event on that card, Vicente Luque versus Mike Perry, is an extremely important fight for the welterweight division, and also has real implications to be a fight of the year contender. And I don't want to overstate this. That sounds like maybe a bit of hyperbole to say something like that, but really, let's think about it for a second. Mike Perry, always an all-action fighter who I think Mike Perry's literal only goal is to viciously knock you out in the most devastating way possible, and he achieves that more often than not. I remember when Mike Perry made his UFC debut at UFC 202, that I didn't know anything about him before the face-off, the stare-down on the day of weigh-ins. And I remember the way that he just got in his opponent's face. Hyung-Gu Lim, I believe, was his opponent at the time, and just screamed in his face. And I was just like, holy shit, this guy's insane, you know? And I looked him up immediately because I didn't really know anything about him. I saw all of his fights. He had won all by knockout. And I looked at his betting odds, and he was like a 4-1 underdog, something like that. So I remember I just put a little bit of money on Mike Perry that night. I thought, you know, this guy's a vicious animal. Let's just see what happens. And, you know, he wins by an amazing first-round knockout. So from that point on, I think me and everybody else who watched that fight card that night were huge Mike Perry fans. What a card to make your debut on as well, if you're Mike Perry on the UFC 202, which was McGregor-Diaz too, if you don't recall. So Mike Perry, an all-action fighter, an absolute fan-friendly fighter that everybody loves. He's probably the biggest name at welterweight outside of the top 15, and Vicente Luque gets to take him on. Now, this is, I believe, I did say all that nice stuff about Mike Perry, and I don't mean to downplay his chances of being able to win this fight, but I think Vicente Luque, this is just set up to be his coming out party into the division, and that's what I meant by I think this fight is going to have tremendous implications on the future of the welterweight division, because I really believe Vicente Luque is the next up-and-coming contender that's just unranked right now. Vicente Luque, he is 9-2 in his UFC career. All 9 of his wins are by finish, and he's currently on a 5-fight win streak. His last loss, so his 2 losses in the UFC, one was his very first UFC fight that he lost by decision, and his last loss was 6 fights ago, and it was a decision loss to Leon Edwards, who is obviously on a huge streak of his own, on an 8-fight win streak. And I'm actually saying that I think Vicente Luque is going to be the next Leon Edwards in a way, you know, as being this next emerging contender who went from not really being, you know, in the fans' eyes a top contender to being a top contender in a short period of time. But the difference between Vicente Luque and Leon Edwards is, you know, Leon Edwards is on this 8-fight win streak right now. He's beaten some amazing names. You know, his last 3 fights, obviously most recently Dos Anjos, that was when he really caught on. But before that, Gunnar Nelson, who is a really popular fighter, great win for Leon Edwards in that one. And Cowboy Cerrone. See, like Leon Edwards, Cowboy Cerrone victory should have been his coming out party, but it took him 2 more fights on top of that to really gain the fans' favor. And the similarity between Luque and Edwards is that neither of them like to talk trash. Both of them like to just fight and let their fighting do the talking for them. But as I said, Vicente Luque, all 9 of his UFC wins are by finish. He is a really fan-friendly, high-action, high-motor type of fighter who's not going to stop. He's going to go for the finish the whole time. And fighting a guy like Mike Perry, who's only looking to viciously knock you out, I mean, this is just a perfectly built fight to be a fight of the night type of fight. I think a potential fight of the year contender. And I think this is Vicente Luque's real chance because Mike Perry is such a fan-friendly fighter, probably the top probably the most popular fighter in the welterweight division outside the top 15, maybe one of the most popular fighters who's unranked in the entire UFC. And so where Leon Edwards, it took him multiple fights against these fan favorites, Cerrone, Nelson, and then Dos Anjos to really, really catch on. I think Luque is going to catch on right after this Mike Perry fight, should he win, of course. Because of the style of the fight, it's going to be an all-action fight. And then when people start looking at Vicente Luque, oh my gosh, he's on a 6-fight win streak. Oh my gosh, all of his UFC wins are by finish. Oh my gosh, like, he's just going to have this huge potential. The UFC at that point, I will guarantee you, if Vicente Luque beats Mike Perry this weekend, which I think he's going to defeat Mike Perry by decision or submission. If he wins by submission, it's going to be even huger for him, if huger is a word. And I think that immediately after this fight, I don't even think it, I guarantee you, if he wins this fight against Mike Perry, he's going to get pushed into a Robbie Lawler fight or a Dos Anjos fight. He's going to get put up against one of those older guys in the division who's not quite a title contender anymore, but is a great measuring stick, who's also going to give him a high action fight. And at that point, Luque wins that fight. Now he's all the way at the top. So I'm really thinking Vicente Luque, he's unranked right now. I believe he's going to beat Mike Perry this weekend, and then he has one fight against an elite action top 10 type of fighter like a Robbie Lawler or Dos Anjos, and then he's an absolute household name, one of the next contenders in the welterweight division, and probably one of the most exciting up-and-coming prospects. So I'm just saying, UFC Uruguay this weekend, a lot of people are downplaying how exciting it's going to be. This is a must-watch fight. The main event's also a very interesting fight, Valentina Shevchenko and Liz Carmouche. And I think there's Volkan Ozdemir and Ilir Latifi is another exciting fight on that card. But this co-main event is must-see if you are an MMA fan. Who do you think is going to win the fight between Vicente Luque and Mike Perry? Do you think Vicente Luque is on a trajectory, like I think, to be one of the elite contenders, one of the bigger names and more exciting fighters in the welterweight division? Please comment below if you have any opinions on this stuff. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on all socials. They're in the description box below. And until next time, cheers, everybody.